out! Get out! Who let you into my delivery room? Doctor, her pressure is dropping fast. Do not touch my patient. Step back now. Listen to me, she needs compression now.
Out. Get out. Who let a cleaner into my delivery room? Time's out. The old woman does not go out. She is already at the side of the bed, both hands moving toward the laboring woman's abdomen, eyes on the blood pooling faster than it should under the drape. She's hemorrhaging. The uterus isn't clamping down. You need bimanual compression, and you need it now. There's a hold that do times, not times touch my patient. Security. Doctor, look at the blood loss. Look at her pressure. She's going to... You don't times speak. You don't times touch. You are not supposed to be on this floor. Doctor, Spencer Crane is the chief of obstetrics at Mercy General. A $40 million women's tower with a banner in the lobby that reads, Time's safest place in the state to have your baby. And right now he is standing over a 29-year-old named Jasmine Tate, whose son was born 4 minutes ago and whose body has just stopped doing the one thing it must do after, which is contract and close. The blood is coming, and he has turned from the warmer to find a heavy-set black woman in a plain cardigan and slacks at the bedside with her hands out. His brain files her in under a second. Cleaner. Housekeeping. Wrong floor. A problem. He does not ask her name. He does not ask why a woman might walk into a hemorrhage talking about uterine compression. He plants a gloved hand on her shoulder and shoves, and his other hand sweeps a sterile instrument tray off the stand to clear the space between them. And it goes down with a crash. Clamps and scissors skating across the floor. You hear me? Get her out of my room. The old woman staggers, catches the bed rail, does not fall. Her eyes never leave the drape. Her name is Jasmine. She's lost 600 mils in its climbing. The fundus is boggy, feel it. Feel it. It's soft. It won't clamp. You're reaching for the wrong drug. She needs compression. Times now, times and. She needs the hold. How dare you? Crane is shaking. Performing it for the room. For the 2 nurses. For the terrified husband against the wall. Some woman wanders in off the custodial hall and tells me how to manage a PPH in times my times unit. You ignorant, you can't even read a monitor. Marcus, where is? Get this woman out. The woman is 66 years old. Her name is Dr. Ernestine Vaughn. And she is. Though no one in this room will understand it for another 7 minutes, the foremost authority in the world on postpartum hemorrhage. The author of the textbook chapter, Spencer Crane, skimmed in residency. Flown in 2 days ago by Mercy General's Times Own Times chief medical officer to consult on its maternal safety program. Here this morning to observe Jasmine Tate's high-risk delivery at the CMO's personal invitation. She came in plain clothes because she was Times observing. Not scrubbed in, standing quietly at the back until the bleeding started and the chief reached for the wrong thing. And a woman who has stopped 1,000 hemorrhages could not stand at the back and watch a mother die of the one she knew how to stop. A security guard the size of a door comes through the doorway. Ma'am, let's go. Son, that woman is bleeding to death, and I know how to stop it. Don't put your hands on me. But the guard already has her by the arm, hauling her back off the bedside. And a nurse gasps. And the instrument tray is still ringing on the floor. And the monitor's alarm climbs as Jasmine Tate's pressure falls. And Dr. Ernestine Vaughn is walked half-dragged out the door of the delivery room. And the last thing she does before the door swings shut is plant her feet and say it one more time. Loud. Over the alarm. To the whole room. Her name is Jasmine Tate, and she is going to die of an atonic uterus that 2 hands can stop. The hold is called the Vaughn maneuver. It's in your own textbook. Somebody do it. The door booms shut. Inside, Spencer Crane turns back to a bleeding mother with the wrong drug in his hand. And outside, in the corridor, the guard lets go of an old woman who does not rub her arm, does not raise her voice, and looks at the closed door with the face of a person who has watched this exact thing happen before. The clock on the corridor wall reads 8:51 a.m. Jasmine Tate has lost nearly a liter of blood. The window to save her is measured in minutes. One person comes to her in the corridor. Miss Roberta Tatum, 78. Jasmine's grandmother, who has been in the family waiting area since 4 a.m. and came down the hall when she heard the alarm. What's happening to my granddaughter? Why did they push you out? Who times are times you? My name is Ernestine Vaughn. Ernestine says, already moving toward the nurse's station. I'm a doctor. The hospital flew me in to keep women like your granddaughter from dying. And that man just threw me out of the room while she does. She is dialing as she walks. Pray. Miss Tatum. And don't let them move me off this floor. Down the corridor. A young labor and delivery nurse named Tessa Lund, 25, 8 months on, the unit is standing frozen at the med cart, having heard every word through the door. And she is looking at the delivery room and at the textbook on the shelf above the station with Times Vow and Times on the spine. And her stomach is somewhere around her shoes. She slides her phone out of her scrub pocket. Real talk, the woman that Chief just had dragged out for being the cleaner, she wrote the chapter on the exact emergency killing that mother right now. The maneuver that can save Jasmine Tate's life is Times named after her Times. It's literally in the book on the shelf, 10 feet from where he's holding the wrong drug. And the reason she knows it, the reason it exists at all, is a story about her mother that is going to break this whole thing open. To understand how we got here, we have to go back. Not 7 minutes, 60 years. If you've ever had the answer to save a life in a room that decided you couldn't possibly have it, drop one word in the comments. We'll know what it means. Because what happens in the next 10 minutes, before that mother bleeds out, not one person in that room sees coming. Ernestine Vaughn learned to stop a hemorrhage before she learned to drive. Her mother was Cleo Vaughn. And Cleo was a granny midwife in the rural South, one of the black lay midwives who, for the first half of the 20th century, caught most of the babies born to poor families, black and white both. In counties where no white doctor would come and no hospital would take them, Cleo had no license. Because the state would not give black women licenses, she had a satchel, a pair of hands, and a knowledge passed down from the midwife who trained her, who'd learned it from the one before. Back further than anyone could name, Cleo Vaughn delivered, by her own count in a worn ledger, over 3,000 babies across 40 years, and lost fewer mothers than the hospital 30 miles away. She lost fewer mothers because of her hands. When a mother bled after birth, when the womb went slack and would not close, and the blood came. The thing that killed more mothers than anything else, Cleo had a maneuver, a specific way of compressing the uterus between two hands, one inside and one out, with a particular fold and pressure that clamped the vessels shut where drugs alone failed. She had no name for it. She called it Times holding her till she holds herself. She taught it to her daughter over a kitchen table with a folded towel, the way her own teacher had taught her, saying the thing Ernestine would carry her whole life. The book forgets. Baby, the hands remember. You hold her till she holds herself, and you don't let go. In the 1950s and 60 seconds, the medical establishment ran the granny midwives out. Public health campaigns painted them as dirty, dangerous, ignorant times, the granny midwife problem. The literature called it, and licensing laws were written specifically to end them. Cleo Vaughn was forced to stop attending births in 1961. She was never thanked, never credited, never compensated. The county health officer who shut her down took her ledger for the records. It was never returned. She died in 1,979 inches, the same house she'd birthed 3,000 children in. Her hands, the hands that had stopped more hemorrhages than the regional hospital, folded on a quilt, uncredited to the end. Her daughter took the hands and got them credentialed. Scholarship. Medical school, where she was the only black woman in her class. A residency that treated her like she should be grateful to hold a retractor. And then because Ernestine Vaughn could do the thing her mother taught her and could now prove it with data, a career, she specialized in the exact thing that killed the most mothers and the thing her mother had beaten with two hands, postpartum hemorrhage. She studied the maneuver. Cleo taught her at the kitchen table. Refined it. Measured it. Proved it stopped a tonic bleeding where standard management failed. She published it. In the paper, she named it not after herself. She tried to name it after her mother. The Cleo Maneuver Times. But the journal editors said an eponym needed a professionally recognized name, and a granny midwife with no license was not professionally recognized. And so it went into the literature, over her objection. As Times the Vaughn Maneuver, her own surname, the only Vaughn the establishment would accept. In the acknowledgments, she wrote one line the editors let stand, because they didn't understand it, for C.V., whose hands remembered what the book forgot. It is, today, taught in every obstetrics program in the world. It is in the textbook on the shelf at Mercy General. Dr. Spencer Crane has performed a version of it. He has cited the Vaughn chapter in his own work. He has never once looked up the photograph of the author, because he knows what an author looks like. 6 weeks ago, Mercy General's chief medical officer, a man named Dr. Hafis, Samuel Okereke, who had been losing sleep over the hospital's maternal numbers, flew Dr. Ernestine Vaughn in to audit the maternal safety program. Quietly, before the board decided how bad the problem was. He did not tell the chief of obstetrics, because the chief of obstetrics was part of what he wanted audited. He invited her to observe a high-risk delivery on her second morning. He did not get her a badge in time. He did not tell Spencer Crane what the consultant looked like. So when Jasmine Tate began to hemorrhage, and the chief of obstetrics turned from the warmer, reaching for the wrong drug, and found the world's foremost authority on that exact emergency, standing at the bedside with her hands out, Dr. Spencer Crane saw a cleaner who'd wandered off the custodial hall and had her thrown out while the mother bled. And 60 years after a county health officer ran Cleo Vaughn out of birthing rooms for being a black woman with hands that knew too much, her daughter was dragged out of one for exactly the same reason. Let's rewind. Fast. Because the clock is running, and at the review that follows, they will count every second. Jasmine Tate's son is born at 8:47 a.m. The delivery is textbook until the third stage, when the placenta delivers and the uterus does not clamp down a Tony, the most common cause of the bleeding that is the leading killer of mothers worldwide. By 8:49, the blood loss is abnormal and climbing. Spencer Crane, confident, reaches for the standard first-line drug and orders it pushed a reasonable first move. Except that Jasmine's bleeding is outpacing it, and her boggy fundus is screaming for the thing drugs alone won't do fast enough. Hands. Ernestine Vaughn has been standing at the back of the room since 8:30, observing. As the CMO arranged, she watches the third stage. She sees the fundus go soft. She does the arithmetic she has done 1,000 times the blood on the drape. The slack uterus. The falling pressure. The minutes. And she knows, with the certainty of 60 years, that the drug alone will lose this race. And she steps to the bedside, because a woman who can stop this cannot stand at the back and watch. That is the moment Spencer Crane turns around. Spencer Crane is 51. He has chaired the department for 7 years. He refers to the unit as my floor, to nurses as my girls, to the laboring women as my patients, in a way that means time's mine to command. He believes, an instinct for the room he can tell. He has said, a clinician from a tech, from a custodian, at a glance. What that instinct keys on is never said aloud. But Tessa Lund, the young nurse, has been on the unit 8 months and already seen it. She watched him assume a visiting black perinatologist was transport and ask her to fetch a wheelchair. She watched him address the unit's one black, attending by the housekeeper's name. She started a note on her phone after the wheelchair day. It has 6 entries. The line that becomes a hashtag Times, who let a cleaner into my delivery room, Times, leaves Crane's mouth at 8:50 a.m. The delivery room records audio and video for safety review. It is policy. Tessa Lund's phone catches it too. Every device catches the same thing, the shove. The sterile tray crashing to the floor. You don't speak, you don't touch. Get this woman out. The guard's hands. And clear over the alarm, Ernestine Vaughn saying Times. The hold is called the Vaughn maneuver. It's in your own textbook. Somebody do it. Ernestine is put into the corridor at 8:50 y uno. She does not call a lawyer. She does not call the press. She pulls out her phone and calls the one person who can fix this from inside the building in the next 60 seconds, Dr. Samuel Okereke, the CMO who flew her in, who is 2 floors up in a meeting. It rings once. Dr. Vaughn, are you in the delivery? How does the program? Samuel, your chief of obstetrics just shoved me out of Jasmine Tate's delivery room. He thinks I'm a janitor. She's in a tonic hemorrhage. He's reaching for the wrong management. And he threw me out while she bleeds. I'm in the corridor. You have minutes. A half-second of silence. Then Okereke's voice goes flat and fast. He did times what? Thrown out. Samuel, physically. He swept a sterile tray onto the floor and had a guard drag me into the hall. And the maneuver that can save her is in the book on the shelf with my name on the spine. And he won't let me near her. Her voice does the thing it has not done in years. It's happening again. 60 years, and it is happening times again. To me, this time. In your hospital, while a mother dies. A breath. Dr. Vaughn, do not move from that floor. I am calling that delivery room directly. Right now. And I am coming down. And you are going back in. Hold on. He hangs up. Tessa Lund is the one who moves first. Before the call reaches the room. She is 25. 8 months on labor and delivery. She was 6 feet from the bed when an old woman in a cardigan was shoved out. And unlike everyone else, she did the thing they teach you, and almost no one does, under a senior physician's rage. She listened to the times, information, not the person. Atonic uterus. Bimanual compression. The Vaughn maneuver. It's in your own textbook. Cleaners do not say times atonic uterus. Cleaners do not name maneuvers that are in the textbook on the shelf, the textbook Tessa has held. The one with times Vaughn times on the spine. She does the bravest thing a junior nurse can do, which is to contradict the chief at the bedside while a patient is crashing. Dr. Crane. Dr. Crane. The woman you put out, she said, the Vaughn maneuver. That's the bimanual compression in the protocol. The fundus is still boggy. The drug isn't holding it. We're at 1,200 mils. Not now. Lund. Doctor. She named the maneuver in our own protocol. How does a Times Cleaner Times know the name of the maneuver in our protocol? And for 1 second, 1 human second, Spencer Crane's certainty cracks. Because he is a bad man in this story, but he is not a man who wants a mother to die. And the question lands, how did she know? That is the second the wall phone in the delivery room rings. And the charge nurse answers. And her face changes. And she says, Dr. Crane, it's the CMO. He says, stop. He says the woman you removed is Dr. Ernestine Vaughn. The drug syringe goes still in Crane's hand. Vaughn. He says it's Times the Times Vaughn. The one who wrote the maneuver. The one we flew in. He says, get her back in this room and let her work, or every one of us is finished. For a moment, no one moves. The monitor screams. Jasmine Tate is gray. And the most confident man on the floor stands frozen over a hemorrhaging mother with the wrong tool in his hand. Beginning. Far too late. To understand. It is Tessa Lund who moves. She is at the door before anyone tells her to, hauling it open. And she says into the corridor, to the woman walking back toward the room already, Dr. Vaughn, please, hurry. And Doctor? Ernestine Vaughn does not say one word to Spencer Crane. She is gloved and at the bedside in seconds. Her hands finding the soft uterus through the abdomen. One hand going where 60 years of her mother's voice told it to go. The fold and the pressure Cleo taught her at a kitchen table with a folded towel. Compression now. There. There. Feel that? It's clamping. Hold it with me, Tessa. Your hands here. Like mine. Don't let go. We hold her till she holds herself. Her hands are steady and certain and 3 generations deep. Push the second line agent. Full dose. Watch the fundus. Everyone breathe. Jasmine, Jasmine. Honey, you're not going anywhere. I've got you. Hold on. The bleeding slows. Then it stops. The uterus. Under 2 pairs of hands. Clamps down and holds. Jasmine Tate's pressure comes back at 9-1A. M. Her son is crying in the warmer. She is going to live. She is going to live because of a maneuver a granny midwife invented at a kitchen table 60 years ago. Performed by the daughter, a hospital had dragged out of the room 10 minutes before. The delivery room footage does not stay in the delivery room. By midday, a clip is on the internet, the shove. The tray hitting the floor. Who let a cleaner into my delivery room? And then, spliced right after, the same woman gloved at the bedside, stopping the hemorrhage. And Jasmine Tate alive with her baby on her chest. It does the thing those clips do. By evening, Wu-Bei. 000 views. By midnight, 6 million. By the next afternoon, low, 8 million. Real talk. What wrecks people about this? One isn't even the slur. Though Times who let a cleaner in here, Times is bad. It's the cut. A chief screaming that an old black woman is a janitor and throwing her out of a delivery room, and then 10 minutes later, that same woman, calm as still water, saving the mother's life with the maneuver that has her own name on it, in his own textbook, on the shelf behind him. You watch a man nearly let a mother die to protect his idea of who's allowed to know how to save her. People can sit with cruelty. They cannot sit with cruelty that almost killed a mother and her newborn. Number the hands. Remember, Trends by 9 the next morning used 384. 000 times in a day. Almost all from people who know what it is to hold the answer in a room that won't take it. A retired labor nurse in Mississippi, I caught more babies than the residents I trained. They still called me the help. A doula in Oakland. They wave us off at the door and then wonder why their black mothers die. We knew. We always knew. A man whose great-grandmother was a granny midwife. She delivered half the county. Black and white. They ran her out and called her dirty. Her name was Cleo. No, mine was Maybelle. But there's a granny in every one of these. Nobody wrote her name down. Mercy General's office issues a statement at 11 a.m. It is 83 words long. It is grateful for the safe delivery of a mother and child. Commends the skilled teamwork of our labor and delivery staff. And is reviewing a communications matter from the incident as part of standard quality assurance. 83 words. No name. No apology to the person. It commends the teamwork, the institution claiming the save, while erasing the woman who made it and the nurse who defied the chief to call her back. It does not say times the chief of obstetrics shoved the consultant out of the room while the mother hemorrhaged. It does not use the words times shoved, or times dragged, or times nearly died. It does not say times doctor. Vaughn stopped the bleeding, the chief could not. The word times black times does not appear. In an 8-3 Word document about a thing that happened to a black woman, because a chief decided what a black woman in a cardigan could know. Ernestine releases no statement. But at 8 that night, a quiet account in her name. Never used. Posts 2 photographs. The first, a worn page from an old ledger. A column of dates and names in a careful hand. Headed times babies caught sea. Vaughn. Hundreds of entries. The second, a black and white photo of a black woman in an apron on a porch. A midwife's satchel at her feet. Her hands folded in her lap. The caption is one sentence. My mother, Cleo Vaughn, caught over 3. 000 babies, and lost fewer mothers than the hospital that ran her out for being a black woman with no license. The maneuver that saved a mother's life today is hers. The book forgot her name. The hands remember. That post is shared too. 1 million times in 3 days. The contempt has only changed clothes. It has not left the building. That is what Mercy General does not understand yet. The shove. The times who let a cleaner in. That was not the contempt. That was just the part the camera caught. The first withdrawal lands at 9:35 a.m. Saturday. It is not a sponsor. There are none in a delivery room. It is heavier. The state's largest perinatal quality collaborative, the body whose certification underwrites that time's safest place in the State Times banner, announces it is suspending Mercy General's maternal safety, designation pending, an independent review. By noon, the insurer that covers half the hospital's deliveries opens a review of its maternal outcomes. Bidva P.M. 2 OB residents request transfers, citing an environment incompatible with safe, equitable care. By Chteri P.M. The State Health Department confirms it is investigating the hospital's maternal mortality reporting. Reputation as gravity, not vengeance. Ernestine causes none of it. She does no interviews. On Saturday evening, she drives out to the country, to the house where she was raised, where her mother caught 3,000 babies and died uncredited on a quilt. And she sits on the porch where the satchel used to rest. And she does not feel triumph. She feels grief. 60 years. Her mother stopped more hemorrhages with 2 hands than the regional hospital and died, called times the granny midwife problem. Today, a mother lived because of those hands. And the world finally knows the name. And Cleo Vaughn is not here to hear them say it. Her phone rings. Dr. Samuel Okereke. Doctor Vaughn, I have to ask you something, and you can tell me to hang up. The maternal numbers I flew you in to audit, did the hospital know how bad they were? Was it Crane? Or was it the system? Samuel. Ernestine says, your young nurse had 6 incidents on her phone before I ever set foot in your building. The question was never whether anyone knew. The question is how many Jasmines there were before this one, the ones nobody filmed. A long breath. The Department of Health wants you to lead the review. Every maternal death and near miss this hospital had in the last decade. Will you? That, Ernestine says, depends entirely on whether they want to find them, or just want my name on the cover so it looks found. Carla Mendez is a 49-year-old health investigations reporter at the Times, Tribune Times, who has been circling Mercy General for 10 months. Her tip came in the spring from a former hospital data analyst named Howard Pratt, who left in 2023 and told Carla, over coffee, that the Times' safest place in the State Times number was engineered. The hospital, under its obstetrics leadership, had for years been quietly transferring its highest-risk mothers out to the public hospital across the county before delivery, declining the women most likely to have complications, and miscoding the bad outcomes that slipped through as unavoidable or occurred at transferring facility. The pattern fell hardest on poor and black mothers, the women statistically most at risk of exactly the hemorrhage that nearly killed Jasmine Tate. Pratt said the architect was the chief of obstetrics, who used the laundered number to protect the banner and his own reputation. He estimated dozens of high-risk mothers had been turned away over the years, and several deaths miscoded to keep the number clean. Carla had been pulling threads. She had a source in records. She had a spreadsheet. She was waiting. She is no longer waiting. On Saturday, she finds Ernestine on the porch. She does not ask for an interview. She lays a folder on the boards between them, years of maternal transfers, the risk profiles of the transferred mothers beside the ones the hospital kept, and a list of names women declined or miscoded. Disproportionately black, disproportionately poor, and clipped to the top because she found it and could not show her. An archived 1,961 county health record, C. Vaughn. Lay midwife license denied practice. Ordered ceased. Re. The granny midwife problem. The order that ran Cleo out, in the same county system whose hospital now turned away the mothers Cleo used to catch. Ernestine reads it a long time. She does not cry. She did her crying on this porch years ago. They wrote Times the Granny Midwife Problem, Times in 1961. She says quietly. 64 years later, they're writing Times, transfer high-risk times on the same women. In the same county, for the same reason they don't want to count the ones who might die. She hands it back. My mother caught the mothers. This kind of hospital wouldn't touch. And they called her the problem. I stop the bleeding, they can't. And they call me the cleaner. The names change. The hands they won't see don't. She looks at the satchel's old place on the porch. He never imagined the woman he filed under Times Cleaner Times, wrote the chapter that saves the mothers. He was busy turning away. The counterattack begins Tuesday, and it is exactly as vile as the genre promises. Spencer Crane retains a crisis litigation firm that fires off by Tuesday afternoon a $10 million defamation demand against Tessa Lund, against the Times Tribune Times, which has not published a word, and, most tellingly, against Ernestine, on the theory that her unauthorized, unscrubbed approach to a sterile field during an obstetric emergency endangered the patient and obstructed the attending, and that her claim to have saved the patient is self-aggrandizing. They flip it. The woman thrown out becomes the danger. The chief who threw her becomes the steward of patient safety. The demand insists Tessa surrender her phone and her note, and insists Ernestine produce the original 1,961 records, and her mother's ledger for forensic authentication by the firm's chosen examiner. That is, it demands the proof of the erasure be handed to the people with the most reason to bury it again. Tessa gets the letter Tuesday night. She is 25. She has loans, a license, 8 months old, and a chief who sits on the board that reviews her. She sits on her apartment floor and shakes for an hour and does not delete one file. At the same time, the manufactured accounts bloom 11 of them, created Monday into Tuesday. 4 with stock photos. 3 with AI faces. Vaughn staged it for fame. The ledger is forged, anyone could write old names in a book. The ledger's paper and ink are period authenticated, and the county's own archived birth records cross-match hundreds of Cleo's entries. Within the week, Times, the mother was never in real danger. The delivery room recording, time-stamped, shows the liter plus loss and the gray pressure. It is not theater. Times' Tessa Lund is a disgruntled probationary nurse. She isn't. The screenshots carry metadata from the day they were made. And then, the smear finds the one place armor doesn't reach. A Wire reporter calls Miss Roberta Tatum, 78, Jasmine's grandmother, the woman who came down the corridor for her perspective, and asks her, with oily gentleness, whether she's Times really sure. At her age, in all the fear and confusion of her granddaughter's emergency, that she saw a doctor get shoved and dragged, or whether she might be swept up in a frightening morning. Miss Roberta Tatum is 78. Her voice on the phone does not shake. Young man, I sat in that waiting room from 4 in the morning, praying my granddaughter and her baby would live. So when that doctor woman tells me she got thrown out of the room that was supposed to save them, and then turns around and saves them with her own 2 hands, I am surer of it than I have ever been of anything. Because my granddaughter is Times alive. And I will tell you something else. Your little phone call doesn't know. I was born in 1947. At home. In this county. Because no hospital would take my mama. Caught by a granny midwife. I never knew her name until this week. Turns out it was Cleo Vaughn. So you can ask me if I'm Times confused. Young man. But you are talking to one of the 3,000 now. Is there some other thing you'd like me to be too old to have understood? The reporter hangs up. He does not write the story. But Roberta, after she hangs up, does not feel victorious. She sits at her kitchen table and thinks about a name she never knew that caught her into the world. And about how close she came this week to burying the granddaughter that name's daughter saved. She takes out a sheet of paper and writes, in a careful hand, Dr. Vaughn, your mother caught me in 1947. Your hands saved my granddaughter this week. I did not know either thing until now. I will say what I saw. Under oath. Anywhere. For as long as I have breath. Roberta Tatum, one of the 3,000. She mails it Thursday. Ernestine reads it on the porch. It is the thing that decides her on what comes next. That night, Ernestine sits alone in the house where she was raised. The smear has called her a fraud and an obstruction in 48 hours. She is 66, and she saved a mother, and they nearly let her bleed to protect a man's idea of who knows how. She thinks, for the first time, whether forcing it all into the light is worth what it's costing the 25-year-old nurse and the 78-year-old being asked to doubt her own eyes. And her mother's voice comes back. From a kitchen table with a folded towel. The book forgets. Baby, the hands remember. You hold on. No matter who tells you to let go. You don't let go. This is the floor. From here it goes one way. The turn comes Friday. And it comes from the last person anyone expects, Bernadette Cho. 60. The hospital's chief nursing officer. Spencer Crane's institutional equal, and the woman who has spent a career being the competence that cleaned up after his confidence. Bernadette has been at Mercy General 28 years. She has known about the transfers for years, known how the number stayed clean, known which mothers got sent across the county. She helped build the risk screening tool that became the instrument Crane used to skim the denominator. And when she saw what it had become, she went to him, and he told her the number was what kept the unit funded. And she went back to her office and said nothing. Because she ran a nursing department in a building, Crane's reputation propped up. She has carried that, watching a child's mother nearly die while the chief threw out the one person who could save her, and learning the erased name was a granny midwife the county had run out is what makes it unbearable. On Friday morning, Bernadette Cho walks into the Times-Tribune, offices with a banker's box. Inside, years of transfer logs. With her own private margin notes flagging the high-risk black mothers steered out under reasons that didn't hold up. A 2020 internal email in which Bernadette asked Crane why the transfer for risk rate for black mothers was triple the rest. And Crane's reply, in full. Those patients carry complications that hurt our metrics. We allocate risk to where the resources are. Don't make this about race. Bernadette. And the email, the one Carla had heard rumors of and never seen. Sent 11 days ago, the morning after the delivery. Before the clip had fully broken from Spencer Crane to two colleagues. Subject line times re. The Vaughn situation. The body, in full, is greater than, I don't care if she turns out to be the author of the textbook. An unscrubbed woman in street clothes entered my sterile field during a PPH, and I removed her. Full stop. And I'd do it again. The kid was saved by my team managing the emergency. The optics are bad, but I am not going to stand up and say some woman in a cardigan ran my delivery better than I did. Because that is not a precedent this department survives. Keep it on communications matter. Do not concede her maneuver was the thing that saved the patient. That stays out of every statement. S. Do not concede her maneuver was the thing that saved the patient. There it is. Not a panic split second in a crashing room, a decision. In his own words. Typed 11 days after a mother nearly bled to death. By a man who times still, after the whole world had watched, called her some woman in a cardigan and ordered her name kept out of the record on purpose. Because being saved by her was the one thing his authority couldn't survive. The delivery room contempt and the cover-up contempt are one contempt. He never stopped. He just usually kept it off email. And this time, cornered. He didn't. Carla Mendez verifies the headers in 3 hours. She publishes Friday at 6:30 p.m. The headline, Do Not Concede, Her Maneuver Saved the Patient. How a hospital nearly let a mother die to protect its banner and erase the granny midwife whose hands wrote the cure. The story is 200 words. It runs the delivery room timeline to the second. The 2020 Times don't make this about race times. Email. The times that stays out times email. The period authenticated 1,961 cease order and Cleo Vaughn's ledger cross-matched to county birth records. The dozens of steered mothers. And Roberta Tatum's signed statement. It runs Cleo Vaughn on her porch with her satchel beside the textbook page that bears the maneuver. The hands in the book 60 years apart. By midnight, the Times-Tribune, servers have crashed twice. It is the most read story in the paper's history. Spencer Crane is removed as chief Saturday, not steps down, but a release. Drafted by the CMO over the firm's objection, using the words Times relieved of duties for cause. And Times, the hospital acknowledges that Dr. Ernestine Vaughn's intervention saved the patient's life, and that the maneuver used originated with the lay midwife, Cleo Vaughn. And times we failed both of them. And we failed the mothers. Our transfers turned away. The exact sentence Crane ordered kept out is the sentence the hospital is forced to put in. The state moves to act on his license over the conduct and the transfer scheme. Both the $10 million demand is withdrawn Sunday in light of new information. Tessa Lund's name, by Sunday night, is on a commendation the hospital can no longer avoid. And the Times-Tribune, readers have done a thing for her too. Faster than anyone can track. The hospital offers Ernestine a settlement Saturday afternoon, a substantial sum. A private apology. A confidentiality clause. And a buried line acknowledging the consultant's contribution. Ernestine reads it on the porch. She makes 3 calls: Jasmine Tate, Dr. Okereke, Carla Mendez, and at Utplice. She sends back 1 page. Not a counteroffer. A list. And no confidentiality clause. She strikes it first. Is greater than there will be no confidentiality clause. My mother's name was not for sale when they ran her out in 1961. And my silence is not for sale now. Is greater than. Instead, 大于一. The maneuver is renamed. In this hospital's protocols, and in the request I will make to every journal that will hear me, the Cleo Vaughn maneuver, after the woman whose hands invented it at a kitchen table, not after the only Vaughn the establishment would accept in 1989. Her name goes on the cure. 大于二. The transfer scheme ends today. Every high-risk mother this hospital turned away is contacted and offered care here. Every miscoded maternal death and near miss in the last decade is reopened and counted honestly. The banner comes down until the real number earns it back by treating the hardest cases, not exporting them. 大于三. A midwifery and maternal care program is established in the underserved parts of this county, the places the granny midwives used to serve, and the hospital now turns away, staffed to stop hemorrhages, where mothers actually are. It is named for my mother and for the tradition the state destroyed. 大于四. Cleo Vaughn's ledger. Taken by the county in 1961 and never returned. Is found and restored to my family. And a record is entered, acknowledging that the granny midwives of this county saved mothers the medical system would not, and were run out for it. 大于五. I will lead the maternal mortality review myself, without a fee, because someone has to make sure the next woman who knows how to save a mother gets heard before that mother bleeds, whatever she's wearing, and I would rather it be me than another 60 years of luck. 大于六. Spencer Crane is not to be pursued, harassed, or contacted by me or on my behalf. He will face the medical board, and his own email, and his own mirror. I have no interest in him. I never did. I only ever wanted them to let me stop the bleeding in time. This time, barely, they did. I want the next mother to have more than barely. Dr. Ernestine Vaughn. The hospital accepts all 6 conditions within the week. 3 weeks later, Jasmine Tate brings her son home. And before she does, she asks Ernestine to come to the room. There is no ceremony. Ernestine refuses one. There are 9 people, Jasmine and her husband, and the baby, Miss Roberta Tatum, who was caught into the world by Cleo Vaughn in 1947 and didn't know it until this month. Dr. Samuel Okereke, Tessa Lund. No longer a probationary nurse, but the first coordinator of a new hemorrhage response team Ernestine insisted on, whose entire job is to make sure the right hands reach the bed in time. Bernadette Cho. standing a little apart. The way a person stands when they've done a right thing years late and know it doesn't buy back the years, and Carla Mendez by the door. On the wall of the unit's new conference room, where the residents will train, there is a photograph now, framed, where the Times Safest Place Times banner mock-ups used to hang. A black woman on a porch with a midwife's satchel at her feet. The brass plate beneath it reads, Cleo Vaughn, 1,909, 1,979. She caught over 3,000 babies and stopped the bleeding. The hospital couldn't. They ran her out and called her a problem. The maneuver that saves these mothers is hers. Her name is on it now. Jasmine Tate holds her son alive, 3 weeks old, fat-cheeked, furious about nothing, and she looks at the old woman whose hands held her uterus closed while she was gray. And she says she has something to ask. We named him. Jasmine says, we weren't going to tell you till he was christened, but I want you to know now. She turns the baby so Ernestine can see his sleeping face. His middle name is Cleo. For the woman whose hands you used, so he carries her. His whole life. Is that all right? And Dr. Ernestine Vaughn, who has spent 60 years carrying a name a county tried to erase, looks at a living 3-week-old boy who will go through the whole of his life carrying her mother's name. And she cannot speak. She reaches out one finger, and the baby's hand closes around it. The reflex every newborn has. The grip her mother caught 3,000 times. There you are, she says. Quiet. Not to the room. To the baby. To Cleo. The hands remember. You hold on. Little one, somebody held on for you. Miss Roberta Tatum turns her face away. Tessa Lund looks at the floor. None of them say anything. Because there is nothing to say. Outside the window, the morning light comes down on a hospital that nearly let a mother die. On a county that once ran a midwife out for knowing too much with her hands. The light has not changed. The grip of a newborn's hand has not changed. It never does. That was always the point. The hands remember. Only the name on the maneuver has changed. And the name is enough. Real talk, doctor. Ernestine Vaughn could have taken the money and walked, and not one soul on earth would have blamed her. 60 years. A mother run out of birthing rooms and dead uncredited on a quilt. A maneuver the whole world uses under the wrong name. She didn't take it. She stayed. She made them put her mother's name on the cure, the Cleo Vaughn maneuver, after the hands that invented it, not the establishment that would only accept a credential. She ended the transfers and made them count every mother honestly. She built a maternal program in the places the granny midwives used to serve. So the next hemorrhage gets stopped where mothers actually are. And she held a newborn's grip and told him to hold on. Because somebody held on for him. And Tessa Lund, 25, 8 months on the floor. Everything to lose contradicted a furious chief at a crashing bedside because a woman in a cardigan named a maneuver from the textbook, and she was the only one who listened to the answer instead of the rage. Nobody had her back when she did it. A mother is alive because a young nurse decided the truth mattered more than the rank of the man refusing to hear it. That's the part that doesn't make the headline. The contempt didn't start in a delivery room, and it won't end with a brass plate. Somewhere tonight, a mother is bleeding in a room where the person who knows how to stop it has already been waved off for her uniform. Hair age. Her skin. The cardigan she wore filed under times, cleaner times, in under a second. Sometimes the woman in the cardigan wrote the chapter. Sometimes the hands a room won't see are the only ones that can hold a mother till she holds herself. Sometimes the person you just decided couldn't possibly know is the one whose mother caught 3,000 babies the hospital wouldn't touch. If you've ever had the answer to save a life in a room that decided you couldn't possibly have it, drop one word in the comments. will know what it means. And if this moved you, share it with someone who needs to know. Their hands were never nobody's. Her name was Cleo Vaughn. It's on The Cure now. Say it.